somebody, a gentleman that's now is one of the, yeah,
Are you trying to tell me I didn't turn on the microphone?
he's the,
I just turned it.
Just now.
I just Chamber of Commerce, Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, okay.
And they created a whole senior service day, and Holly would like to see, Holly suggested that as a commission that would be a real good thing for us to think about. I think that I agree with her. The question becomes always, what we're doing with our time and how we feel like we're best serving the community with the time that we're spending doing things. But I think that this is a really good opportunity to get our foot in the door, so to speak, of providing a volunteer type of service.
And for the requirements for the volunteers, besides that they're physically able to do it, can we make sure that we include on there, because I've done a lot of Habitat for Humanity, closed-toed shoes, you'd be surprised how many people may
It
show
is
up.
actually on there,
Okay.
yeah.
And the other thing is we need a first aid kit at every location, because somebody always gets a cut or something. I have a personal one that I could bring, but we just need to make sure for the,
You know what, that's a great suggestion. Are you on that committee?
yes.
You are, so make sure that that is
Okay.
something that is included. I do think there are a lot of details that have to be attended to, but I'm really leaving that to the subcommittee to do that. There's a lot of details, and that's
Yeah.
where it would be, that's the only reason I think doing 10 would be difficult. I don't even think it's difficult to get volunteers. I think it's difficult to put all
Right.
the details together, because you're gonna have to know about the properties and what needs to be done and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, we'll leave it at that for now.
Well, even if, we can leave this with the committee, but even go out in advance, take pictures of the property, so people are aware. So-
We're gonna have to be clear about what should be done and, what the homeowner wants done, what the homeowner doesn't want done, it's their yard. We are doing things only outside. We're only doing yard work and cleanup, not repairs, because I don't even wanna try to determine what's a good repair and what's a bad repair.
We're not doing landscaping, we're
We're
doing
not doing,
cleanup.
we're doing cleanup, yeah.
Yeah.
So, is there anything anybody else thinks we need to discuss about hopefully the subcommittee will come back next month and have some details about what's going on.
Just to clarify, Vicki, I'm not sure what the deadline is for submitting the applications, but you don't necessarily need to bring the actual application to the commission. It's just getting consensus on what the project's going to be, and the committee I can work with in finalizing the actual submittal. What else was I gonna say? One of the civic action commissioners is also volunteered to help in some way once you know what your projects are for the seniors.
And so, do we need to do something to connect that person with Nicole?
Not necessarily with the community. I would say once the project is established, perhaps, and then to ask for whatever the resources are that you're looking for. That's my thought. You can handle it differently if you see a different.
I think we have time, but it is gonna kind of come up quickly, I'm
Yes.
afraid.
That's right.
They do put in, if I remember correctly, in the Outlook, there's a call for volunteers. And so if people just openly say, yes, I want to volunteer on Community Service Day, the Civic Action Committee could actually assign volunteers to our project or to whatever project they need to put people on. But I'm thinking that we need to recruit our own, for the most part, we're gonna have to actively recruit volunteers.
I'm gonna mention it at my HOA board meeting on the 4th, and I'm sure I'll get some.
Okay.
And I think, to clarify, I think all volunteers would probably need to sign up that way, even if the commission.
Yeah, they'll have to actually sign up that way for sure.
Yeah,
right,
because I think the city has a waiver as well. that they-
Yes, they definitely will have to sign up that way. I
Oh,
think as
no.
far as actually locating them, though, we're gonna need to
Yeah.
do our legwork. Yes, I think there's a lot of good places. I'm hoping to invite my plant club to do that, it makes sense, right? Plant club people to do yard work, so, but we'll see. I think the Boy Scouts are a great group. The Boy Scouts need volunteer hours, and so Nicole's working on how she can have that work for them to do that, so. Right now, that's the only actual event in September, is that September 27th.
Yeah, would you like me to share it back on the screen again, or do you want to just work off of the
I don't care. Do you guys want
Okay.
to?
Yeah,
Fine
I
with
showed
that,
it,
okay.
yeah. I try to show so that people can see what we're looking at, but I did show it.
Okay. So, at the end of September, there will be we'll need to do another Outlook article and it will need. Um. So, let's see.
Yeah, that'll be for the November, December issue.
So the other, we did talk about doing the community connections, workshop in September. And I have, I met with Holly Freitas at the senior center and talked about it a little bit. And I am hoping actually to do that on October 24th. It was a date we came up with. Partly because the senior center has their own open house in September. So I didn't want it to conflict with their open house. And we have the community service day in September. So I just felt like September was a little too busy. And I will be on vacation for the first couple of weeks of October. So just from a personal point of view, I wanted it to be a little later in October. So I'm hoping that you all are open to the idea of having a workshop on community connections. And so actually I really need you all to decide if we want to do that. And I have some more information about kind of how I think it would look and so forth, but it's not really up to me at this point. It would include, to me, it's going to be about helping people find ways to socialize. And sometimes as we age, it gets more difficult because life just changes, you know, your kids move out of town, your friends move away, or whatever happens, and various stages of life sometimes leave us without the friends we used to have. And it's a very common problem in the older population. We know that it's very important from people's health point of view that they maintain good social connections. They say it's up there with a leading cause of health problems, social isolation and loneliness, and that it seems like a very appropriate topic for us to address. So I see it as hopefully a panel workshop where we have people talk about different social organizations that help with connecting with us. I have a commitment from somebody from Well Connected, the Front Porch organization that does online Zoom connections. This catalog is full of all the different topics and Zoom meetings that they have. This is their spring summer one, and I don't know how, so obviously they put this out a couple times a year. This one, May 1st to August 31st. The woman, the president of this organization, said she would come and be one of the speakers. So she will explain, so that's already tentatively available. Holly agreed to be one of the speakers and talk to what is available at the senior center as far as connecting with other people. Potentially, Marian had talked a lot about how she used meetup groups when she moved to Pleasant Hill and didn't know anybody, and has developed a lot of friendships and, you know, long-term friends based on finding other people that were interested in the same thing she was. Meetup is an online organization. It's a national organization, and they have hundreds of different groups, but people basically agree to meet up with each other or whatever.
And the
Hopefully-
group I meet in meetup is over 60.
There you go.
That defines the group.
And there are lots of different qualifiers. You can go in and search for different things. So I thought that was another one that was a good one to talk about. I would love to see different organizations in Pleasant Hill represented, maybe though. So I think as far as getting it organized, it's going to take some footwork again to get maybe somebody from the library, somebody from Mount Diablo Adult Ed to talk about the classes they have. Possibly not a lot of talking time, but maybe just availability to provide information for people. I see it as a possibility of having tables set up with, their catalogs or, and that kind of thing, like a little table event. Possibly doing some icebreaker type of things, but that's kind of.
It might be interesting to get
vision.
someone from Medicare.
Mhm.
And the reason is this is part of your annual physical where they ask you questions about loneliness and how do you keep interact and why it's important. So they don't have to physically be there, but I know they have training materials because I just got all my questionnaire in the mail and it's pretty extensive and your primary care physician is supposed to ask you these questions and engage and it really, it's saying why it's important.
Mhm.
It's not as much about resources, but it is part of your annual Medicare physical that they ask these series of questions, and a lot of primary cares don't ask.
I'm with Kaiser. I don't ever remember.
My primary care asks me every year.
Yeah, it depends on the doctor.
They talk about loneliness, they talk about, do you get depressed? It's a check-in, and it's a casual conversation.
Billable through Medicare.
Yes, it's Medicare, yeah.
Yes. it
Okay.
is. Yes, that along with, there's also cognitive tests they're
Right.
supposed to do, and sometimes they do them and sometimes they don't. We talked about it at the Alzheimer's workshop.
But you should ask for them to do it,
Yes, we should ask for them to do it.
because they get a baseline and they check you every time you go in.
My doctor did one test, she asked me to name 10 animals. Anyway, but I know that there's a whole host of them. So if you, Juanita, do we need to vote whether we want to have that event?
It's not necessarily about just a consensus if the commission agrees that this is what.
Anybody have, does everybody agree that that would be a good workshop for us to hold?
Be very,
Are you talking about, because I'm having, looking at that and then also hospice in the September, October.
Well, this is very true, so
So should we like nix the hospice one, which I have no problem doing.
I don't know, what do y'all think? I don't know that we need to nix it necessarily, but it is a lot in 1 month. When would we do the coping with grief, and when did we do it last year, and what do we definitely want to do that one again?
Yeah, we put it in September.
And could we do hospice in September by chance?
I wouldn't be able to, I'd get enough commitment if I was gonna be the lead person on that.
And you also have community service day.
Yeah, I am coping with grief during the holidays. What kind of we never had a huge attendance on that, did we? Compared to like hospice?
Yeah, it's,
So
15
maybe we
would
wanna
have
look at, do we wanna do hospice, palliative, or do we wanna do coping with grief during the holiday? And pick one of them,
Isn't hospice better attended?
Well, that's what I was just saying, yeah.
Yeah.
I personally think they're both good topics, and I really enjoyed the grief during the holidays last year, but there weren't that many people at it.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
could
if-
that be more appropriate as an Outlook article? So we address it before the holidays and do the hospice as a.
Well, a lot of times we use the Outlook as a way to promote the workshop, but it doesn't have to be. So that's a good question.
And we get more than 250 words.
No.
Yeah, well, and that's another thing that we can talk about, but, what do you
So
think?
if you-
When are you thinking that it would work best to do the
Well,
hospital?
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's okay.
What's the question, if I cut you off?
When would you suggest we do the hospice workshop?
Well, we could do it like the first part of November,
Because
um,
we certainly could do it earlier in October too, because it's not, if we don't do this other one till the 24th. But it might be a lot for 1 month. Early November is open and available.
I just want to remind you also that the Outlook usually goes out the first week or so, so you don't have a lot of time to get the word out, and I think that's part of the reason why there's been a low attendance. I'm not sure if it was a subject matter or if it was just not enough time to promote. It is hard to turn around in a week or two.
And we can always do hospice in January. You know, I mean, it doesn't have to be this year, I mean, January, February.
And I don't want to do it too close to the holidays, you know, because it is a tough subject for people to go through. And if they're already having, you know, coping with grief during the holidays, if we do that one, I'd like to end on.
I think we're
I know.
talking about doing one or the other at the
Okay, at this
moment.
point, okay.
Yeah. I almost feel like they could be combined, but I know they're not really. Well, what do you think is, you know, from our experience, y'all, what do you, the hospice one was pretty well attended last year, if I remember correctly. We did talk about it a little bit, Lorna, when we talked about the panel, when we had the panel discussion. That was part of the discussion then. I think there's always a lot of questions.
There's always a lot of questions, yeah.
Coping with grief is not one you can necessarily do in January,
No,
but palliative care, you can do.
But you know, we've done it 2 years in a row and neither one was well attended. That's my concern. Whereas we've done hospice a couple times and it's always been well attended.
I wonder if coping with grief is just something that's a great subject, but maybe that's not the right setting. You know.
Is there a way that we can work that in as one of the, flip the script? Having somebody talk, about social isolation or something, I mean, talking, not necessarily coping with grief, but, coping with the stress of the holidays.
Well, is it possible to have a segment in your hospice thing where they talk about dealing during holidays with
That's not a bad idea.
That's kind of
You
what I
know,
was thinking
just-
when I was said they could be combined, is like grief and hospice definitely can go hand in
you know,
hand.
maybe it'd be appropriate to have the person speak about, you know, just grief, not necessarily the holidays, but with the grief associated with the loss of a loved one.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And in particular around the
Well, and
holidays.
actually, when you're talking about anybody in hospice, if you're talking about somebody that's actively in hospice during the holidays, then you are dealing with
Right.
the grieving process already, right? Do you think that?
That's a good idea, yeah.
Do you still want to keep the palliative? I think the continuing discussion about the difference between palliative care and hospice is important. So I wouldn't leave that out necessarily.
We could have like palliative be addressed by John Muir Hospital. And we could have, I would like to, then the basic hospice. But then I would like to also put in, a hospice who talks about dementia. Because dementia, later stage dementia is qualifying for hospice. And there's one particular hospice program in the community that has a really good program for dementia that I think would be fun to.
Is that new?
The dementia, what new?
Hospice for people with dementia?
No, it's end stage dementia,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's in.
All right, yeah.
You know, so you, yeah.
Okay.
So you're almost bedbound, kind of.
Oh,
But
so
they,
combo.
yeah, but it is under hospice. And coping with grief, that would be good.
If you want to look at the calendar, and so one of the problems with having the community connections as we age in the end of October is that the article is going to come out at the beginning of September. Which means that it'll be a little stale by the time, you know, like the Outlook's probably gonna be thrown away by then.
Not necessarily, I would say that's still your best
Still okay.
methodology. It seems we have the greatest success if it is, whatever the workshop is the second month from when the outlook goes out, because again, sometimes the outlook doesn't get out for a week or 10 days, unfortunately, into that month. And so if you have something later that same month, it's not gonna get very much time. Not everybody reads it as soon as they get it. And, but once that goes out, we have all kinds of follow-up, so people are receiving it multiple ways. The further in advance that you have the information start to get out there, the more opportunity you have to promote it.
So, given all that, Lauren, we probably need to look at a date a little bit. The problem with Thanksgiving, of course, it gets
So, yeah,
in the middle of the problem, with November,
So if you wanted
but we could do very early
early,
December,
early November, I would want to do.
early November.
Yeah.
Well, so that the outlook won't be delivered until the beginning of November. That's kind of what Juanita's saying.
Yeah, so, we've been doing it around the 10th, 11th, somewhere in there. Well, the 11th is Veterans Day, but it could be that week.
So when does the outlook drop? Like,
Usually the first week.
okay, so if we look at November, the 10th week, that would be late enough in the,
Like the 12th or 13th, perhaps Wednesday, Thursday.
okay,
If it can be the second week, it would probably be better
Okay.
than the first week.
okay.
But we could actually mention it even in the outlook that comes out in September and October, not as won't be the whole.
Yeah, no, we can just, yeah, you can do it, yeah.
And as Juanita has pointed out a couple of times, and we probably need to take better advantage of is, and I don't know what it's called, the email update that comes out from the city comes out every 2 weeks. And we can put information in there as well about any of our events that we need to. And the repetition of getting, like promoting anything, I'm not an advertising person, but the more times people hear it or know how to register and all that kind of stuff. And actually, if we have it ready to go as far as registering people at the October event, then we could promote it there too,
That's a good.
even though it's.
Yeah, and I would have to be done with it because I would have to get all the commitments before that.
Yeah, and the article would have to be done, ready to go by the end of September. September 29th is the deadline for that article, correct? Okay. All right.
Okay, so one last question, we can move on from me. Did we determine morning versus afternoon in terms of attendance? Do we have, in the best world, I guess I did, we just did that one, and it was.
It was 10 o'clock.
morning, it was 10
Yeah,
o'clock, and it was
yeah.
well attended.
It was, but the last one was well attended as well.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Okay, so then
I would say whatever
I'll
better.
be whoever, I'll put it out there. I'll put it out for the 12th and whatever those days were. And go from there.
okay. So we'll put your name on it.
And actually for the connecting with others, Holly and I talked about 10:30 because we could actually suggest to people that they make reservations for
Lunch.
lunch at the
Yeah.
senior center if they want to. So that would make it about lunchtime. So.
I just want to clarify, so you're taking the lead then on the community?
Yes, and actually, I suppose we should determine a subcommittee for the social connection. Do you need subcommittee for the palliative care?
I'd be more than happy if somebody wanted to work with me, but I don't. I think
I know
the
nothing.
social connection one is one that you're gonna really need.
I need people, so I would really like to know who's interested, and I would like to stay as the on that committee for the social connections one.
Yeah.
And you would like to do that? Me too. Okay. So I keep my village committee going here,
Okay,
Marion and Dana. And, I know, I think Nicole's expressed interest, but I realize she's not here, so I can't vote her in, but.
You could, but it wouldn't be very nice.
She's kind of busy with the other one.
And on the social connections, I just want to clarify that you are proposing it to be at the senior center, right?
Yes, mostly because I would like people to be able to get up and move around, and I was a little concerned about doing it in the council chambers because of the sloping floors.
Absolutely.
I saw people almost fall down a couple times.
And I would like to do the hospice one, like we did the panel with aging
Okay.
at the city
I don't think
council.
this is a
Yeah.
good time
And
to
we'll
throw
be
this out.
behind with the mics.
When I,
That was much smoother.
over the past few years,
Brenna, is
we
yours
did
an
something for
hour or
caregivers.
hour and a half?
And I don't see any,
You know,
We always.
you know,
do
did
an
I
hour
don't
and a
know.
half Because it always seems that, yeah,
I'll make sure.
yeah, so it'd be an hour and a half. Yeah, good
Do you-
question,
Do you
Dave.
have an idea when you would?
I don't remember when we did, but it was very, very well attended. And Keith Tran was one of our wonderful speakers, and I talked to him. I was in the city, school and talked to him, and he said he would come and speak again.
How soon would we want, so Gail's saying that she would like to see some on the calendar for an event for caregivers. But
In 25, 20.
Yeah, I think this is
we
right.
might have to look.
Yeah,
at
but I think that's a great idea. We need to revisit that. That was always so good.
Yeah,
Yeah, we only have till December right at the moment in front of us, but we're gonna have to talk about all of next year pretty soon, so.
okay, I'll save it.
Let's do it then.
Yes, I'm writing it down.
All right. All right.
Back to the article then, that will be for the September, October. then-
Lorna, it will be due on the 29th of September. for hospice.
And the one in July, we're gonna need community service day and the connections thing in there, right?
I would say you don't really need to do much for Community Services Day, because that will get promoted like crazy by Civic Action Commission. All the process.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could use that space
At the
where,
moment, I will commit to doing the article for the July connection thing.
okay,
I'm hoping that it'll mostly be a list of who will be there and what we're doing.
And that's 250 words.
Trust me. My other one was hard to keep short enough.
That's usually what I find.
Yes.
Can I ask a question before we move on the whole hospice thing? There's like over 60 hospices in Contra Costa County. And I'm obviously going to only identify probably 3 or 4 at the most to speak at our event. What, does it make sense, and I'm just speaking out loud because I haven't thought this through, but if I sent out a note to all the hospices, giving them the opportunity to provide us with 25 brochures on their hospice, would we want that?
Provide us with what?
Yeah, 25 marketing pieces of their hospice.
They're pamphlets.
Yeah, and I'm only asking that because Juanita and I do this dance about, there's more people, there's more home care agencies, whatever. I'm not gonna go and actively pursue it, but I'm willing to send out
60 hospices in Contra Costa?
at least.
Really?
What if you just had the pamphlets for those people that are speaking and.
Well, that
presenting?
was what we would have.
And then for
I'm
the
just
rest,
saying.
I would have a list with their website available.
Are
And,
we endorsing? I mean,
no, you're just saying these are potential resources. We can't really endorse anybody.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying this, that's why I'm having this.
Well, so if you had to pare it down to people, the ones that people would likely use in Pleasant Hill, or if they were discharged from from our John Muir hospitals or Kaiser Hospital here in this area, that doesn't narrow it down very much.
Maybe 20.
If though you got 60 from everybody, it
How does
would be,
anybody know who to choose?
it'd be,
Well, that's the
It
whole.
becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
The whole problem.
Is that something that we can address in the discussion without being
Well,
prejudicial?
Yeah, I do say that, that there's lots, Maybe we should just leave it alone.
Or
Well, the
come up with criteria
Like,
for
I would
making
like
your
to know
selection.
that, like, how would I know who to choose? Like, I would really love to know that, like, if I
Well,
was
that's,
trying
that's
to
because
choose
people
a-
come to me and go,
Well,
how
what
would I
about
choose? You know,
Pleasant Hill, Walnut Creek, Concord?
where they
There's
have
13.
offices in. okay.
Yeah, there's 13 cities in Contra Costa County. We don't necessarily need to know what's on in Richmond. I mean, if you're looking at a way to,
I'm
Head
just,
down.
I'm just trying to be as, transparent,
right,
you know, that there's lots of hospices and there's definitely some hospices in Concord that I would never use.
oh,
But that's, you know, I mean, that's me personally.
That's why I would rather have the criteria,
I
you
would
know.
want the
I think-
criteria, how to
I
make a good decision, what you should consider.
Well, I do that in the presentation.
I think that's good.
Okay. I don't know, what do you think, Juanita, because really Lorna was asking.
Oh, yeah, I think what you just discussed is great, if you offer some criteria. Of how,
That is an idea
and
to
how
find
to,
out
how to assess, and
the
then maybe,
offices in
yeah.
Concord, Pleasant Hill, because that would be criteria right there
right.
that, if
Yeah,
we
but
could-
we don't want materials from somebody you wouldn't look at.
Well, just because I won't doesn't mean. it's-
I think if
If
you
offer
have,
that summary list that Tara
give us,
mentioned.
yeah, summary list of
Okay,
the
a summary
criteria
list
is what I would.
okay, summary list of offices, hospices that have their offices in Concord, Pleasant Hill, and Walnut Creek.
And as long as you just make it clear, it's not a recommendation, these are available resources.
Yeah.
And let people make their own decision.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
just thought it was a way to narrow it down.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
It doesn't mean all those hospices can't do business here, but yeah, they're not as likely to probably. Okay. Are we done with the calendar for the time being?
We didn't say anything that light up the night.
Light up the
You know,
night.
yeah,
Do we need, can we just, can we wait till next month to talk about light up the night? Okay,
We're gonna have a date yet, yeah.
thank you for noticing, Dana. Okay, so we are at number 6 on our agenda, which is asking if Lorna would like to provide a report, if any, from the area council on aging.
Well, I would like to again encourage anybody who wants to attend next Monday's event at Los Madonnas College. It's the Older Americans Act celebration. It's 50 years. We'll have the director of the Department of Aging there. It's from 2 to 4, and there'll be lots of resources that are available to the county. A lot of nonprofits that are being funded, all the nonprofits that are being funded, such as Meals on Wheels, will be there because they're getting funding from the Older Americans Act. So there's going to be quite a few resource tables and that type of thing there.
So where do we go to get more detail?
Juanita sent it.
We sent the flyer out.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
Did, so I called my calendar.
Is that something that people in general can be invited to? Or are we being
Absolutely.
invited? Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's why
An open event.
it's total invitation.
Okay, anything else?
That's the main thing right now.
So we are at the Commissioner Subcommittee reports, and I would like to do a subcommittee update on the village concept, where we are with it, and I've created a few PowerPoint slides and talked to Marion. Marion and Dana and I were the subcommittee for discussing the village concept. I'm not sure we did a very good job of figuring out what our goal was in the first place. I think we were kind of looking at, does Pleasant Hill need a village? That was our main question. And since then, we had so Terry, for your knowledge, we had a gentleman come and talk to us about village concept in January. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but a couple of these slides are kind of reviewing what a village is. And in general, just as an overview, we kind of still think a village is kind of a good idea, but it's a lot. It's a lot to get set up, and we'll talk about more what a village can do and what we can do possibly that would address some of those same needs. So would you go wait for, so Gail, as I said, I'm not sure how much you're familiar with the village concept, but I put a little bit of a review in here so that we all kind of remembered. But it's basically a grassroots effort to create an interconnected community to support older members of the community so that they could stay in their homes better. They are linked with one another and with a network of volunteered and paid services. They generally, in order for it to work, there needs to be a person that's the coordinator. And in general, it's been done as a volunteer organization. Frequently that coordinator becomes a paid staff position because it's a lot to try to connect the needs of the people in the village. So in a village, people become members. They generally pay to be members, and they are provided certain services in connection with being a member of the village. They are not, they definitely always exclude things that are caregiving type of services. So this is completely separate from determining, having a caregiver in the home, but there are other services that people, older people need in order to stay healthy and be able to live in their houses. So they can be things like ride. One of the most common things is our rides, helping people with their computers in their houses, doing small handyman type chores in the house. The other big piece is generally they have a lot of social activities that people can go to and are kind of linked by this village coordinator, if that makes sense.
It's really relationship based?
It's relationship and volunteer networking based.
Okay.
So it kind of, so right now in Walnut, there is a functioning village in Clayton. There's one in La Miranda. Walnut Creek is about to launch theirs. They had to change their name from Walnut Creek Village to Mount Diablo Village because Walnut Creek is apparently a name that is taken somewhere else in the country. So just like there are Pleasant Hills, multiple places in the country, there are also Walnut Creeks in other places in the country. So
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had to leave the room. Is this the Lost Madonnas?
No.
That was, okay, I
yeah,
got
the event of the Los Medanos is the birthday party essentially for the disability, what's it?
Older Americans
Older
Act.
Americans Act. This is a village concept.
Okay.
Go ahead to the next slide, please, Juanita, it'll make more sense. So in most villages anyway, they have a bunch of different kinds of social activities. And then they also keep a list of a bunch of service providers and community partners that people can be called upon. Some of them are volunteers, some of them are paid. But the coordinator helps people figure all that out. Like if the members can go on a website and say, I need somebody to drive me to the doctor on this day, or I need help in my yard, is there a volunteer that can help me with that kind of thing? And so there's a lot of connecting volunteers with people that need things in their house. That makes sense. In other words, it's kind of complicated.
Yeah.
And so go ahead and go to the next slide. So what they generally do is they help people access resources, community resources. So it could be anything from existing resources like Meals on Wheels or the senior van, or, whatever resources are around, it helps them access them. But it also can help them access volunteer assistance, and they keep a whole volunteer organization. They know, for instance, that the Boy Scouts will go out and do whatever, or the Rotary Club will go out and do whatever, but they also usually have their own volunteers that are just village volunteers, and that's what they do. My sister-in-law is a village volunteer for San Mateo, and she is on their social committee. So one of the things she and their committee do is come up with social events, and then they publicize those to their members, and people can attend them or not attend them or whatever. And that is their social interaction and opportunity piece of that. The friend of mine that originally asked me what I knew about villages, the volunteer takes that she knew of. She has a friend that's in the Berkeley Village. He's blind. There is a volunteer that picks him up at his house, walks him over to coffee every morning, and then walks him home. And that's his volunteer service. So, and in all that, they're trying to keep this group of people kind of connected with each other. So, go ahead to the next slide, please. So, and this is kind of a really, just superficial overview, but in general, what is obvious is that it requires a community effort to get a village established. Walnut Creek has been working on theirs for almost 2 years, and they have yet to launch it. They are doing activities. They are gathering names of volunteers. They're gathering people that are interested in being members, but they have not actually launched their village yet. It takes that long to kind of.
It takes a village to create a village.
It does. It takes a village to create a village, and it definitely was pretty clear from the get-go of our subcommittee. It wasn't something that the Commission on Aging needs to take on. If it was to be ever in Pleasant Hill, it would have to be a community effort, maybe supported by the Commission on Aging, but it wouldn't be the Commission on Aging doing it directly, if that makes sense. The village usually ends up with a paid staff member, and the one advantage we would have is that La Miranda is trying to help people by being what they call a hub and allowing people to be the spokes of their hub. And what that could include is using their staff person for a while to have a Pleasant Hill Village, if we were to have that, to help us get started up if we wanted to do that. You do have to have a volunteer force. It won't work unless you have enough members to kind of pay the staff person. The La Miranda Village, a third of their members, they have 600 members, a third of their members are scholarshiped and have their fees, which are about $50 a month, paid by the city of Lafayette.
That's a lot of money for seniors to pay out.
Well, it depends on what it includes.
Depends on what the services are.
Right. So it does. And and actually the main feedback I got from people in general about a village is that you had to be a member and you had to pay a fee. And is there a way we can do this without being a member and having a fee? And really the only thing the fee ends up paying for is the staff and the computer and an office space for that person, so.
Is that something that could be grant eligible?
And yes, it can be,
Okay.
and there are lots of ways, that's why there are ways to do it.
Yeah.
There have been places where they've shown that most of the villages that have been successful have been in areas that maybe they don't even need it as much as a more impoverished area might need it. And so then they found that there are communities that have been either had a grant or had their city council decide this is something they would sponsor, or some other way that the startup fees, so to speak, were paid so that it became more doable. But there is some money involved because of that. And so all of those things made it feel like it's not a Commission on Aging thing for us to do
It's
right
much
now.
broader.
Yeah. So if it's all right with all of you, we would like to sunset the village subcommittee and hopefully launch us into a next phase of determining what we do or don't do that may be related to some of the things that the village does provide, then maybe we could support. We just have to determine whether it's something that is appropriate and something we want to do. The main thing is whether it supports the older community in Pleasant Hill, and it's something, you know, I think that always needs to be our focus, right?
Well,
So,
maybe we don't know necessarily what the as-is state is, you know, because it's probably pretty dispersed over a lot of different agencies or whatever. So before you can really decide what the to-be state is, you gotta know what we have, and we may have huge gaps that we can't even address, we don't know. So, I mean, it's a
Thank you,
huge
Karen.
undertaking.
she just said it a lot better than I ever.
I've been in that situation, but you know, the other thing when we talk about resources, maybe a sub thought after this is what are all the resources available to seniors? Because one I would like to add is VITA. So it's the Volunteer Income Tax Association, and it's students from some of the colleges. They do income tax for free.
And what we have determined, and I think that we've all said it many times in this room, is that there are lots of resources in this area, lots. But for people to know what they are
Yeah,
is not easy. And there isn't a really easy easy way to do that. And actually, that's a very good lead into my next suggestion, which is that we establish a resource committee, subcommittee, to address what we do think we need to do to make sure that people know how to find resources. It's not really the city of Pleasant Hill's job, but it might be the Commission on Aging's job.
Before we go further, I had no idea what a village was. And I wanted to thank you because you did a ton of work checking this out, you know, and chairing our subcommittee to try to move it forward if that was possible. So I did want to thank you
definitely.
because you did an awful lot of work.
I learned a lot, I have to say.
Yeah, well, I did too, because I didn't even know
It existed.
what a village, what you meant when you said, oh, we need a village. I'm like, well, I live in a city.
I know. Well, and I think that it's still a good idea, you know, I would but I just think that it's not an easy thing to get
It's
established.
very broad, yeah.
We tried to do it with the city of Pleasant Hill, but 5 years ago
Yeah.
with the commission.
Oh, did,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, we did it.
But I think resources are a great place to start.
Yes.
Well, and.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but I
thank you,
did
actually, it's a
wanna-
great lead in, and because I think that we learned, you know, I think the main thing is we should be here to learn what the older people in Pleasant Hill do need. I'm not sure, I mean, we did the one survey that was helpful, and you guys went forward with a couple of things. They must have done it a long time ago, because a long time ago, they came up with the senior van, and we have a senior van service, because somebody, you know, went out of their way to work on that and provide that transportation in the city.
No, actually, the senior band's been here 25 years.
It's been a while, but it was established by the Commission on Aging. It was like,
Yeah.
it's been, I think, I want to say 97. It's been a while.
Wow. Yeah, so I mean, you know, we can do big things. One of the things that I considered doing, but I just decided there was enough up there today, was doing a couple of paid screenshots of the city of what it takes to find our resource page we have a resource page. The Commission on Aging has a resource page. And it has good links. It's just not it doesn't have a lot of information, and there's at least one thing on there that I know probably needs to just be updated. I haven't looked at it in great detail, but the thing I have had a number of people do, and I would invite you all to do it, is go find that page. Go on the city's
So
website.
How do we
Find it.
correct that?
Well, and I asked Juanita that, and there's not really a super clear answer, because that would be up to us to make a suggestion. And that's where I am sorry we don't have it up here for you to look at, but there are banners, you know, when you go on the Pleasant Hill website, there are banners and they say government, services, community, and two other things, I think, Juanita, I'm not sure, but,
Yeah, can I just, are we done with the village? Because we still have this slide up.
oh, you know what, go to the next, see what else is there, I can't remember, there's another slide. So, actually, let me go back to this for a minute, and then I'll go back to that. What I think is that we determined that the village includes acquisition, you know, finding resources, helping people find resources. The village also coordinates volunteers and helps people, you know, access volunteer assistance. And that the other thing about village does is promote social interaction. So this is what Pleasant Hill currently has in terms of those things. And then go ahead to the next slide, Juanita. I'm very good at jumping ahead of things, by the way. Never mind. Thanks. So the subcommittee's recommendations were to form a new resource communications subcommittee that would review the Commission on Aging's resource page and make recommendations for improvement and recommend other ways to improve access to information. So I would like to do that today if we can. The other, I think that by doing the community service day, we are putting, you know, kind of putting our toes in the water of finding out what it takes to engage volunteers to help seniors in our community. And we will be able to tell whether we want to do more with that or not after we go through that process. I was gonna say survive it, but go through that process of what it takes to actually have that happen and how we might want to extend that. And then the same thing with the workshop on connecting with others, that we maybe we survey those participants and find out what things they're interested in and try to connect people that way a little bit more and see if there's something else we need to do with promoting interactions, you know, so use that
Volunteer to
workshop.
be on your resource committee,
Okay.
because we can do quick reference cards, we can do QR codes, and you have to train people how to use those, you know? But I do a lot of communication, so.
Awesome.
Would anybody else like to join Terry?
I'm sorry, we have agenda items and this is still the village.
Okay,
And then we do have a separate agenda item regarding establishment of.
well, let's, I think that's the last slide.
She keeps us on.
I know, well, thank God.
Sorry.
Data,
No, no.
that's all I can say.
Okay.
Okay, is that the last slide? Yes. Okay, so in the village, but you can see the kind of the village kind of breaks down into those things: resources, volunteer, social. Okay, and I think that the resources is a very important aspect of that, and I would like, you know, like I said, have that committee be able to look at what we have and what we might want to do that would make it easier for people to access resources. Juanita had the great idea one time of putting just one thing in the Outlook of, you know, did you know that you can, you know, you don't have to be a senior center member to use the care management professional that works out of there. Did you know that? You know, she's funded by something that has nothing to do with the Park and Recreation District, and that she's accessible. And Holly assured me that we would not overwhelm her if we promoted her services, for instance. So there are many, many resources, and I will actually so is anybody else besides Terry interested in working on this resources thing?
I think two's enough.
Okay,
We're super women, we can do it.
okay. And if you want additional assistance, you're welcome to it. I have things that.
Can I clarify, are you on that as well, or?
I think I will be on it as well for now, yes, but I think, Terry, would you be willing to be the chair for that?
Sure.
Terry, you can put me on your list if you need help.
Okay, she's
I'm
getting.
gradually
that
getting
documentation and
myself.
Well, if we were gonna put you as a subcommittee member, we need to write you in as a subcommittee
Right,
member.
it's a yes or.
So we can only have 4.
Okay, never mind.
Do you wanna be on it? I bet you have resources.
I do.
Okay. Be on there.
So do you think that in
So that'd
every
be yes, yeah.
Outlook, we should have a little thing where it says, do you know?
I think that's.
I like that.
The other thing we used to do.
Well, that was
is-
Juanita's idea. So.
In case you missed it, we do that too.
I actually was thinking you could do something in every update, so you could like plan out, for each one, maybe
I
perhaps.
think that's a great idea. Short, sweet.
Yeah,
Take
I
a
like
lot.
that.
That's a lot.
And I will, whenever we have a subcommittee meeting, I will show you all these things, but this is the county resource directory.
Just that.
Oh, so Vicky, you are on the sub?
I'll be on the subcommittee for now, but Cherry is the chair.
Do you want
We
to
even
take,
have
I can take your materials and I'll copy whatever I need,
some.
Yes.
or I'll request a
You
copy.
can have that, because I have a box of those.
Okay,
I should bring
You
them
have.
for everybody.
And actually, the senior center has these available to give to people now too.
Yeah, right.
You
well,
guys.
then take your,
Yeah.
stop by the senior
No, you
center.
can have it.
Okay.
Lorna will bring.
Oh,
it.
they're available at senior center? Oh, there are,
But they even have smaller, like.
yeah.
one of these.
I've got a couple of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the city of Walnut Creek Aging and Adult References. This is Holly, the senior center, Holly and the senior center staff put this one page back and forth because they needed something to be able to just reference for themselves when they were trying to give people resources.
Mhm.
All of those.
Amy.
Yeah, you. And I would invite you all to try, here's the back page of that one. Go on our website, go on the City of Pleasant Hills website and see what you have to do to find our page. And hint, if you have to, the Commission on Aging is actually under government. Okay, but see, if you were just going on looking for information, really, I think one of the important questions is, where would you look?
Yeah.
So.
We can also examine the search terms,
Mhm.
because common search terms should be recognizable in a search bar,
Well-
and people never update those.
Well, I can tell you can use senior, but I'll just, that's the only clue I'm gonna give you.
I'll time myself.
Okay, so let's get back on our agenda here. Where are we?
Announcement.
Oh, good. Did we get through the two subcommittee things? Announcements. This is an old one. How did I get an old one? Does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make to the rest of the commission?
No.
Juanita, are there any other staff announcements?
I do have one, and it kind of ties right in, and that is that I received updated wallet cards from 211 Crisis Center, and they have brochures, which I hadn't seen before. So I will pass these around. They are another resource
Resources that I didn't.
that, pass them on.
You know, actually, thank you, Juanita, because I didn't know 211 existed until I started looking into resources.
Yeah, I
And,
tried calling 211. Very disappointed.
okay, well, we'll let you know.
I'm
That's too
just
bad.
saying,
And the other place you can call to is on the back of here is the
Yeah.
it's the county's phone number for help. Anyway, thank you, Juanita. And Holly actually sent me, and I forgot to bring it. I apologize, Holly. I will send it to Juanita, but some good information about staying cool and being safe as far as overheating and cooling, places that are open. They didn't say they're specifically cooling centers, but places that are air conditioned for seniors. I just wasn't sure what we would do with the information. It's really good information, but it's 2 pages long, so. Well, thank you for sending that, Holly. I apologize.
Yeah, she didn't say, so.
All right.
And if I need, do I go by the senior center if I need more of the band pamphlets? Because those have been a big hit, right? And I ran out.
No, they should, these guys can, they're in the dispatch.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
That
that.
she wanted more information on the senior
The
van.
I
pamphlet?
have that.
Juanita has. The dispatch office is here in the city hall.
Oh, okay.
It is actually a
I
city
learn something new
service.
every day.
Yeah, it's a city service, and Marion and Dana are both dispatchers.
I put like 5 of them on our bulletin board next to our mailboxes, and
Yeah.
they're gone. Then I put 3 up and they're gone.
Really?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that there are just, so I do end the meeting.
You're finished?
I think that we're done. You did it for the improvement.
Yes.
First,
Hey, fabulous.
Yeah, just adjourn it until the date, to the date.
During the meeting until our next meeting, which is on August.
Great.
That's it.
Yeah.